Hi, my name's Teresa. I'm a registered dietitian and a newly certified personal trainer as well. I love creating videos about women's health and fitness, and I'm trying to become more active on this platform just to share the wealth of knowledge that I've had from schooling and research and everything to help women, especially in like mid-20s to your 40s, when you're in that fertile stage of your life, to really help you create this strong and nourished body that can withstand everything in years to come. So I want to really be that helping guide and hand along your health and fitness journeys. But keeping in mind, always to put a disclaimer in here, I am a registered dietitian. I do have personal training certification, but I am not specifically yours. So any recommendations here, take that as knowledge and take that as a learning moment for yourself. And I always advise seeking help and advisement from an expert and somebody that has gone through the schooling, has gone through many years of researching and applying themselves in different specialties, nutrition, physical activity, movement, and when it comes down to your health. So with all that being said, I just want to hop into today's video. So I wanted to take some time to go through my top tips from doing my own research, from applying these things to myself in my own journey for women that are looking to gain that muscle mass, feel strong, maybe even look stronger, get a more like a tighter physique, or you're just going for that muscle. That is something that I've become super passionate about. So we will learn about the 5 tips that I have here in today's video, and I'll kind of break that down for you. So I have my notes here too, so I'll be looking down at my notes that I have here in my lap. So a little bit about muscle and the benefits for women. Muscle is a metabolically active tissue. So what that means is when you have more muscle mass in your body, you're burning more calories at rest, but it also means muscle is very energy efficient. So it's gonna really help improve that insulin sensitivity, so you have better balanced blood sugars throughout the day, which then therefore can actually help reduce the risk of developing diabetes or insulin resistance down the line. Especially with women with PCOS, insulin resistance can be very common, and so muscle mass can really help even reduce that risk of either worsening the resistance or developing that along your journey. So when I say insulin sensitivity, if that doesn't make sense to you, this is essentially what muscle does, and it really helps boost that uptake of glucose from the bloodstream into the cells by improving the insulin that is released and is used more efficiently in your body. So essentially what muscle does is really help enhances the uptake of glucose from the bloodstream. So, and then it flows it directly into cells without having to use the insulin to be that mediator there. But it also improves insulin sensitivity to help increase the blood flow to your muscles, which increases muscle building receptors and really helps improves nutrient delivery and hormone signaling for that muscle growth and development. Now that you know kind of what muscle does in the woman's body and really in anybody's body, but I'm specifically talking to women here today, the top tip that women need to know in order to gain muscle, we do need to be in a caloric surplus. This essentially means that you need more calories than at your maintenance calorie intake. Some fat mass will be gained in the process. Let's say you're going on a muscle building journey. Yes, fat mass is going to happen because we are in a caloric surplus, but also with that muscle building underneath, when you're pushing the weights in the gym, progressively overloading, you can go into a period of time where you go into a slight deficit with monitoring and everything, and then therefore you can shed that body fat that you gained during that season, and then you can show off the lean muscle tissue that you built underneath. When you think about, like, if you've ever seen like a bodybuilding plan where they're bulking or cutting, it doesn't need to be that extreme for the average woman that is like, hey, you want to start kicking butt in the gym and really enhance your level of fitness in your own body, and you want to push yourself a little bit. That's fine. But there is seasons where it's going to be easier. Now, building muscle isn't necessarily easy in itself, but it's also is going to be an easier process when, you know, rather than saying, I want to build muscle, lose fat all simultaneously. it's not really gonna be as effective really. So not taking the extreme bodybuilding approach for the lay woman, like the lay person, but thinking about, okay, there are seasons to go through a muscle building phase. I usually, you know, I'm looking at 6 months of like, let's really hone in on this, build that muscle tissue, and then we can start thinking about, are you ready mentally, physically, stress, sleep, all that stuff? Are all those factors ready to go into a slight calorie deficit and a cut to help show that muscle? An example of this would be, so if you were a woman in your 30s, let's say you're in your 30s and you have goals of building muscle, you have a history of working out, but it hasn't been like as consistent as you want it to. Yeah, you maybe do different workouts during the week, and then you're also trying to eat at this caloric intake that might be way too low for you because you are wanting to shed the fat or something like that. But now you're like, I want to gain muscle, but how do I do that? So essentially what I would do initially is I need to break down all the pillars of your health: sleep, stress, lifestyle, nutrition, physical activity routine. Yes, we need to break those down. But primarily what you want to focus on is strength training. So specifically progressive overload, which I'll touch on later in the video, and then increase your calories. That's what I would do incrementally. So if you're coming from a very low caloric intake for what you're expending and it's just not enough, you're not eating enough protein or enough carbs, fats, and fiber, things like that, we're gonna slowly increase that on a bi-weekly basis to get you to a maintenance level of calories. Stay at maintenance for a while. This is all while you are working in the gym, working on yourself, and really slowly work into a slight surplus that can then help that muscle building happen along the way. The other tip to look out for on your muscle building journey, and if you're trying to gain muscle, is like the Newbie Gains. But Newbie Gains are essentially, if you're a woman that has come from a background of not really working out consistently, this is new to you, and now you're all of a sudden, you know, you're being intentional about your protein intake, you're being intentional about eating enough food, you're being intentional about rest, and getting to the gym 2 to 3 times a week, or doing at-home workouts with bodyweight strength and doing that progressively and consistently over time, you are gonna find that usually in the beginning you're gonna drop body fat and probably gain muscle quicker than it would be for a woman coming in that has had experience and background of training and then has gone through some cycles of nutrition, because your body is like, oh, this is a stimulus I haven't seen before, so we're gonna use this up, you know? So we just need to be a little more strategic. So if you have come from a training background and you have been, you know, maybe there's tweaks we need to make to nutrition to really up-level your results with that muscle gain. So those Newbie Gains, awesome, good for you, that's awesome. Just keeping in mind that that does not last forever, but it is an awesome boost to see, like in that first 3 months, 6 months of your progress, and then you can continue to build and evolve off of that after you experience those. The third tip I want to stress that is so important for your muscle building journey, and this is something I had to get in my own head, is that rest. Rest is what you need in order to help your muscle repair and build in that time period. Think of when you're working out, you're actually breaking down the muscle. So what you are doing afterwards, like fueling up with your meals and getting in enough macronutrients throughout the day, getting enough sleep, stretching, taking 1 to 2 rest days throughout the week, that is that muscle building, muscle repair process, to where you can really, really hone in on that and help your muscles grow more efficiently. And trying to go, you know, if you're trying to go 6-7 days a week, every day of the week, super intense workouts, breaking your body down every single day, day after day, your body's gonna have, and you're not super extremely intentional about eating enough to support those demands, resting enough to support those demands of your body, then the muscle gain is likely going to happen so much slower, but it's likely not gonna be great in the long run to build a nice quality lean tissue that we want to have for years to come. And then on those rest days, that does not mean become a couch potato, do nothing. That means, oh, I'm getting up, maybe I'm going for a casual stroll today, making sure I'm moving throughout the day, nourishing your body. So just because it's a rest day doesn't mean we slash our calories in half, or even we go into a 500 calorie deficit. Yes, you may not need as much carbs that day because you're not expending things, but that doesn't mean if your baseline carbs are 180 grams of carbs a day, that doesn't mean have 100 grams of carbs a day. That means, okay, maybe 170. Like literally it's the tiniest bit if you don't feel that hungry, because you really don't need that extra fuel for that day. The glycogen and everything, the glucose for your muscles, but also we need enough to help support that. Another thing to incorporate in your rest days is maybe some mobility or stretching. I like doing like a 10-minute mobility or stretching sequence that I can do along with just casually walking and doing housework throughout the day. Fourth tip that I had mentioned earlier in the video, and that is going to be consistent strength training with progressive overload. Now, this is where we are going to see the greatest results with muscle building. And so this could mean just starting off, if you're somebody that hasn't been training, starting off with at least 2 times of strength training in the gym. And this should be done with supervision. But you could even start out with body weight strength, like 2 full body weight strength workouts each week. I'll go through 2 different examples in a minute here to explain to you like 2 different scenarios of backgrounds and how we would approach that. To touch on like adding the resistance and focus on progressive overloading. You might be like, what the heck does progressive overload mean? What that means is you're going to increase the reps, increase the frequency, or increase the weight in your workouts. Or not all 3 at once. Let's say in the first month you are lifting a weight for 10 reps for 4 sets. So you're doing 4 sets of 10 reps of, let's say, a 20-pound dumbbell goblet squat. Let's just say you're doing that. Okay, so we would probably go throughout that, and if you feel at that 10th rep you're still struggling to get up, we need to keep it there and keep pushing your body there. Let's say you get to week 3 and you're doing the 20-pound dumbbell and you get to set 2 and the 10th rep feels like a breeze. Maybe we're going to do the 20-pound dumbbell and then we're gonna bump up the last 3 sets. So first set's the 10, then we're gonna do 3 sets of 12. And then that extra 2 reps might feel a little more difficult. Or vice versa, what you could do is just go to the 25-pound dumbbell, and then let's say, okay, now that 10th rep feels challenging to you. So that's what I mean by progressive overload. A couple of examples. Example 1 would be the woman that is just starting out lifting. You don't have any prior experience, maybe you do have started walking, things like that. I would start with body weight movements here, because we need to get down the way your body moves in a squat, the way your body moves in a push-up, the way your body, how you embrace your core. We have to go through basic principles first. But what I would do is go on YouTube, 20-minute full body weight strength workout. Do that, plan that in, plan one day for that one, find another one, plan that other 20-minute workout in for another day. Do that for at least 3-4 weeks. And see where you're at. Maybe add a set of dumbbells by week 4 to the movement. So you're keeping the movements the same, you're progressing in those movements. The other example would be a woman that is coming from a lifting background, but let's say you have been doing lifts and you've been doing workouts in the gym 3 to 4 times a week, maybe 5, but there's no rhyme or reason. You haven't been tracking your weights in the gym, you haven't been doing the same workouts week to week. This would be the part where we're like, okay, we need to focus on what do you enjoy doing? Like, what workouts are you really enjoying doing? And we need to keep these consistent for at minimum, 8 weeks at minimum. 12 weeks, ideally. What we need to do there is figure out let's say you want to do 4 days of lifting. Those workouts are gonna stay the same. Let's say you do an upper lower split, upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, so on and so forth. Those workouts are gonna stay the same. You're gonna keep track of the weights. 4 by 10 reps of this weight. Next week, 4 by 10 reps of the same weight. Maybe week 3, you're like, oh, I can do 4 by 10, but I bumped up the weight 2.5 pounds. And I can do 10 reps of that. So that's what that progressive overload would look like from 2 different examples of women starting from different backgrounds. All right, and then my 5th and final tip, I talk about protein quite a lot on my Instagram and TikTok. So I am all about the protein and the quality of protein. The reason why I hone in on protein so much, yes, other macronutrients matter. They do so much: fiber, carbs, fat. Protein is something that's often the one that we don't eat enough of, and it can be more challenging for many people. When we think about eating enough protein throughout the day, so the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics baseline recommendations, so you're just sitting here breathing basically, like baseline recommendations is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So let's say you weigh 75 kilograms, so about 165 pounds. That would equate to 60 grams of protein per day, because we take 0.8 times 75 kilograms to get 60 grams of protein per day. So that's baseline. Throughout my research, throughout studying, and then I really love Gabrielle Lyon, I love looking at scientific studies, what's going to help drive that muscle building potential is increasing your protein intake. Because what do our muscles drive off of? Protein. Protein helps synthesize the muscle to help build, repair that tissue to then help create that strong, lean tissue we're striving for. So essentially from my research and following Gabrielle Lyon, I really have loved her approach, but I have found that 1.2 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is pretty standard recommendation. That's quite a range there. This is going to be different for everyone. Generally speaking, again, if we use that example, if you're 75 kilograms or 165 pounds and you are aiming for 1.2 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilogram body weight, that would equal about 90 grams to 128 grams of protein per day. If I'm looking at a woman at that weight, I would need to know her height to then therefore establish a protein goal. That's another point I want to bring up here. It doesn't mean that if you weigh 200 pounds, I'm not going to recommend 200 grams of protein for a woman, especially. Like, yes, high protein is important, but then always pushing more protein doesn't always necessarily mean beneficial. Let's say you're at this 165 pounds, and I probably wouldn't say eat 165 grams of protein. So we would say, what is your goal? Like, okay, let's say it's 72 kg. So then we would take that protein amount times 72 kilograms of body weight, and then we would get your daily protein intake, if that makes sense. So that's just to lay the foundation of how I would figure out what your protein intake is like. And it also depends on what your health history is, past history with nutrition and genetics, like a ton of other things, like pre-existing conditions, everything that plays a role into that too. The last thing I want to point out about protein is the fact that we want to make sure that we are getting in beneficial protein, so high quality protein. So for my plant-based diet eaters, I love plant-forward meals and plant-based meals, love them. The thing to keep in mind though, when you are on a muscle building journey, you want to get quality protein, and leucine is the amino acid that we want to be looking out for in animal products. So what are we not eating a lot of on a plant-based diet is animal products. So if you're having like some plant-based proteins and you're trying to pair them together, we want to aim for at least 2 to 3 grams of leucine per serving of that food. Leucine really helps flip that switch of that, help drive that muscle building. So I hope you got a lot out of today's video. Go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment for what other videos or topics you would like to see. I always love the feedback, but I hope that this helps any of you women out there that are starting a muscle building journey. Maybe just one tidbit that you pulled out of this video that will help you, and apply it. Like, try to apply it and see if it works for you, but you got this. Let's continue striving for strong and nourish. And thanks for tuning in today. Hope you have a great day. Stay strong.